Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 117. What can the fall of the Roman Empire teach us about the beginnings of cybersecurity? And with me today, again, for at least the sixth time, is Jerome. Jerome, the cut. We don't have the budget for air horns, or else I'd do it.
We have a budget. Whoa.
There's no budget.
Water in my trailer next time.
I'm
brown M&Ms.
Hey, it was just to see if anybody was reading the contract, man. Get on.
If you don't pay attention to the brown M&Ms, you're gonna fuck up my pyrotechnics.
That's right. You're gonna kill somebody.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a story for another time. With this episode, we'll be discussing the Roman Empire. So let's get into it. The Roman Empire. Oh, actually, before we do that, Jerome, you want to do your disclaimer, your whole legal thing?
Yeah. Anything I express, say, comments, sigh, excrete at all is my own opinion, my own supposition, my own background, my own experience, and it represents nobody else, nothing else, no organization, nothing I work for, nobody else I've ever been paid by. Just me.
Yeah, you keep those excretions to yourself.
That's not what you said yesterday.
Well, that was emissions, but we'll talk about that later.
Emissions? Oh my God.
All right. So the Roman Empire was huge, man. It was all the way. The Roman Empire at one point reached all the way to Britain, which is the island that the UK primarily sits in now, as east as Turkey, as south as Libya, and as far north as what? Belgium? Norway?
No, not Norway. Shit, I don't know about Belgium, but up to the Danube?
Yeah.
Where the fuck that is. It could be in Arkansas for all I know.
Yeah, well, it was a big fucking country, or big fucking empire. And the Roman Empire lasted for a long fucking time. And the beginnings of it are in question, but the whole, mythos of Rome was that it was founded by Romulus and Remus, who were twins that survived the sacking of Troy, warrior twins. And when they founded Rome, they basically found the Seven Hills and were like, yeah, this is a great place. And then Romulus and Remus argued the fuck out of what they would call it. And then Romulus stabbed Remus in the back and was like, nope, it's Rome, damn it. And that was the beginning of Rome, which is kind of, if that is the beginning, that is really true to the rest of the history of Rome. Rome is important because it's one of the only ancient civilizations that we have recorded data from. Like we know just a shit ton about Rome because they kept records, because they actually wrote things down, because they're and because they had a bureaucracy from hell. So when we
golden ever say mean things about the bureaucracy again.
The bureaucracy feeds the needs of the ever expanding bureaucracy.
All right, Reagan.
Yeah. So with this, Rome lasted for a long ass time, at least 1,000 years, more like two and a half. I don't know. And it depends. It depends on who you ask, because there is some debate about the fall of Rome, because there really are three really key important dates in the fall of Rome. And the first one is 410 CE, when Rome, the actual city, was sacked by Visigoths. This is seen as the end of Rome because it basically ended Rome's ability to be a military force in the region. Like they really didn't have the ability to defend themselves through a lot of different problems, none of which mirror anything that's going on today. And then the next and probably most popular date for the end of Rome is 476 CE, and this is where the last Western Roman Empire emperor was overthrown. There are some other dates between there. There's the split between Eastern and Western Rome. There's some debate about whether or not any of the other sackings actually were the end of Rome. because Rome did get sacked several times. But then the absolute end date for the Roman Empire is actually 1453, when Constantinople became Istanbul in the sack of the Ottoman Turks against Constantinople.
You can't let the Queen of all cities go down, man. Otherwise, you get the Turks, and that's just bullshit, because Constantinople is the right name.
Well, but it's not. It's now Istanbul. So if you have a date in Constantinople, she's in Istanbul.
No, it needs to be Constantinople. And if she's in the wrong place, it's her fault, not mine.
Hey, even though New York was once New Amsterdam, damn it.
I do not know that, and I will not talk about it behind its back.
It transitioned, all right?
Conversation.
Yeah, anyway.
What does this have to do with IT?
Yeah, what does this have to do? Well, so this was actually a conversation spurred by something that you read, correct, Jerome?
Yeah. So I was reading something for homework, and one of the articles, I'll read the quote here, came up, and we'll also the link to Matthew for the name of the article and the specific quote. But the quote is, "It is generally believed that cybersecurity began in the 1990s, but in fact, viruses and worms have been part of the background noise of cybersecurity since its earliest days." And so I threw that over to Matthew, and I was like, all right, conjecture. And
and I was like, pedancy.
Well, yeah, we got into some pedantic, and then he was like, why don't we talk about this in front of other people? And I said, why don't we have friends? But it was fun. It was like, why not? But I had a conjecture that you needed a network for there to be cybersecurity. You needed more than one machine by itself. And basically,
I think that's wrong.
But then you provided me a bunch of things that concluded, went along with it. Anyway. And then, so we're arguing. He's like, well, let's do it on a podcast. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, I have a bunch more points. I'm like, do you care to share? He's like, nope. So apparently I'm the prosecution and he's the defense. I have to share everything with him beforehand, and I have no idea what he's going to say. It's going to be, yeah. But yeah, to finish the conjecture is, until you had some kind of, and I'm not saying that, like, nowadays you don't. Cybersecurity has become a thing, but it took a network, the ability for people to remotely access things, for computers to be able to link together, and then have the inability to know the identity of other people and the requirements therein, the requirements to know identity, and realize that that's a big key aspect for cybersecurity to become a thing. Before that, it was like industrial espionage, or I turned it off, so now it's secure. Or, man, the door and no one can get to it. So that's physical security. So like that was kind of my loosey-goosey argument, and it spawned all sorts of shit. So anyway, now that I've put it out there, why am I right, Matthew? I mean,
you are so wrong. You are so wrong. So for everyone's edification, education, and satisfaction, probably not. But you missed. I know. Enlightenment? Yeah, no. There's no enlightenment. Not this early in the morning. So the first real computer virus was called the Reaper. It was generated in 1971, and then a specific antivirus program the Creeper was the first virus. The Reaper was the first antivirus. And the Creeper was basically, it was just a memory. It ate up memory, and the Reaper was an antivirus program that was meant to kill the Creeper. And so but it was all unofficial. It wasn't anything that was actually a part of a concerted effort to combat this thing. The Reaper was really just made by some guy in his basement because he didn't want to have to deal with the Creeper anymore. But as viruses began to spread across multiple machines, and they were spread through floppies, actually, shareware and floppies. They were copied onto the floppies, and as people installed these applications existed on these floppies, the they would pick up virus. And one of the most prevalent ones back in the early 80s was called the DOS Boys or New York Boys, the New York Boys virus. And basically all it would do is eat up a 100K of your RAM, which was significant back then. And you wouldn't be able to launch programs. And so an organization created the Ultimate Virus Killer in 1987, which is the first antivirus in production for sale. Those are kind of key dates when you're talking about the origins of cybersecurity, because when you think about viruses, when you think about cybersecurity, you obviously think, okay, one of the first things you have to have is an antivirus. So the first actual antivirus was for sale in 1987. That led to, very shortly thereafter, in 1991, that led to McAfee and Norton Antivirus. They both basically started at the same time, not at the exact same time, but very near each other. But since the 60s, there were other things like AT&T, and back in the 60s, the Captain Crunch, back when cereal was cool, Captain Crunch included a toy whistle in a cereal box. Using this whistle, emitted a frequency at exactly, was it 2600 hertz? And this would cause the phone system, AT&T's phone system, to basically pass your call off no matter what and not require you to pay them. And so some dudes found this and basically used this to have free long distance phone calls, because back then you had to pay for long distance phone calls. You had to pay for hours to talk. There was a whole thing about it. I'm not going to get into the phone thing. Why? Anyway. Yeah. So with this, AT&T had an entire division dedicated to stopping this kind of attack, this kind of exploitation of their network. So then, also moving on, there are other things. There are other aspects, like AT&T hacks have been a thing as long as ATMs. ATM hacks have been a thing since ATMs have been in existence. People hacking ATMs either through physical means or through going in and adjusting the bill value on the dispensed bills so that it thinks it's handing out ones when it's actually handing out 20s. There's also been plenty of hacks that have been brought up through the Anarchist Cookbook. So things like fooling the bill readers on change machines to think that a $1 is a $5 bill, or fooling the reader to process the change request, but then identify the bill as being torn, so it spits the bill back out. So those were back in the Anarchist Cookbook, and that Anarchist Cookbook was written in the 1970s. So anyways, those were all the arguments that I've given as to the start of cybersecurity being well before the 90s or even the internet. So, but we can kind of identify the start of cybersecurity as either being pre-internet or post-internet. Because if it started pre-internet, then there's a whole lot of space for it to have started. Post-internet, basically we're looking at the earliest time for cybersecurity to really be an industry is like 1995. Now that I've laid out the defense, what you got?
Well, I'm sorry I fell asleep. You were just so good.
God. Eat a dick.
So maybe you. Anyway. Okay. So pedanticness time. So the first virus, Creeper, was spread over something that some people probably have heard of, or many people probably heard of. I have no idea what the frack it is, but it's called ARPANET, and it existed before the internet. And it was initially established as a command and control and survivability structure with DoD and some academia to figure out if they could do distributed communications and command in case of nuclear strike. It spread over. ARPANET spread like a virus across the country, but it was the precursor to the internet. But the Creeper used ARPANET to spread. Now, Matthew did not tell me about the other one. And I was looking that up, and yeah, that definitely was spreading via floppies. Like the guy wrote it and it sat in the memory on the local machine until a new floppy went in, and then it wrote that floppy and it would just keep popping around. And apparently, one of them would put a freaking poem, a little haiku on your screen that you've been hacked, which way classier than we got nowadays. Like your hard drive is R, send us Bitcoin. Like, come on, dude, rhyme that shit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you're going to hold somebody ransom, at least be whimsical about it. Goddamn.
Yeah, where's my whimsy? But so those are all excellent points about like the earliest elements of the idea that we need to actually secure these things. Like ARPANET initially established, we're like, hey, we don't need to secure it. We own all the endpoints. Well, guess what? People were selling fucking marijuana on there because people will always be the worst part of your system.
Cheech and Chong got on there, man. I mean, there was a whole movie about it, right?
Professor Cheech and Chong, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that what Superman 3 is all about?
There's a Superman 3?
Yeah. There is. I mean, yeah, I think basically that was Office Space.
Isn't that sufficient to say that there's a Superman 2? Anyway. Wow. But yeah, so there's all these instances of electronics being attacked. Like, absolutely. And they're not up for debate. Phreaking was a thing. Phreaking was used to tonally get around the control system AT&T put in to replace that picture of ladies like unplugging and plugging in long distance lines when they switched to a mechanical electronic system. And I do say mechanical electronic because it needed both initially. You use tones to connect to your long distance circuit, but you could trick it. And that's what the Phreaking thing is, the blue box, if you've ever heard of that. Or, the Captain Kangaroo whistle or whatever.
No, it's Captain Crunch.
Oh, yeah. Right. You said a second ago. It's just, that blows my mind that was the exact right frequency.
The funny thing is that if you forgot to take the whistle out of the box, you wouldn't have noticed because it would have torn your mouth up as much as the cereal.
God, why is he not Commodore Crunch yet?
I don't know.
You think rebranding it up and promotion was in order. The old gentleman's been at sea for years. Anyway, this episode is all tangents. But yeah, so without having a network, there was not, and going back to my conjecture, without having a network, there's not sufficient mass for this to become an industry of itself. Univac and all the other VACs and all the other like computers who actually knew the name of the machine didn't necessarily generate like, this is the change in the world. We saw people called computers in the 60s and 70s. We didn't know what this thing was. And as computers and machines started getting bigger and bigger, and we realized, oh shit, people are people, and some of them are idiots and will do marijuana sales, and some of them are malicious and will try and steal 20s for ones. We realized we had to actually do something about it. And we were all like putzing around like, fuck, we got to do something. But it wasn't until there was networking and a critical mass of machines and technology that were linked together that cybersecurity became a thing itself. And I guess that's really where I was going with is like, if you just had a bunch of single machines that don't connect, then it's just freaking hard to attack them. It's not really worth the effort and time. And let me tell you, I know a couple of programmers. They're some of the laziest people in the world, and that's brilliant. Because why write code 10 times when I could write code once that does it 10 times? Like, I don't know. I'm rambling, but you need a network to make it worth it.
So man, I love the fact that you think that there needs to be a network in order for there to be cybersecurity. But I do have one surprise here.
Cybersecurity become its own thing. Now,
oh man,
it's everywhere. And there's so many devices that don't need networks because it's become ubiquitous.
Yeah. No, well, and don't get me wrong. I'm not, there's a lot to be said about, the internet really was it really is where the cybersecurity industry exploded. But do you know why Nintendo was successful where Atari wasn't. Man, I'm taken for the silence. You have no idea about the Atari. So back in the 70s, there was
Yakuza.
I heard Yakuza. Oh, the Yakuza are the reason.
It always goes back to the mob. Yeah.
Well,
The mob in Japan.
the Yakuza. Yeah. Well,
Shit, what's the hell?
no, you're right. It's the Yakuza, the triad, whatever.
Yeah. They're why they hustled. All right, never mind. Go ahead.
All right. Well, so yeah. So the Atari, one of the biggest reasons why Atari failed as a company was because throughout their gaming industry, their games were able to be produced by anybody. Like there were hardware issues. The hardware wasn't nearly as powerful as arcade machines, and people wanted to play arcade games at home. And so when they bought an Atari, it wasn't as powerful as the arcade machine, so they couldn't play the games they wanted to play. But also, anybody could make an Atari game. As long as they knew how to make an Atari game, they could make it, put it on the chip, and then sell it as an Atari game. And that's a problem because if Atari didn't license your game, they weren't getting paid for it. So there are all these games getting sold, and Atari did the Gillette formula where they sold the console at a loss, expecting you to buy their games. And if you bought non-licensed games, they weren't getting any money. And on top of that, the quality of the non-licensed games was shit in comparison to the actual Atari games, but they were sold for like $5 and $10. So, of course, grandma and grandpa are going to buy those games for Christmas rather than buy the $20, $30, $40 Atari games for you.
Grandma and grandpa are buying you socks. I don't know whose grandma and grandpa you had to buy Atari games. Mr. Richie Rich over here.
Fucking Richie Rich. What the hell? He died. He's now Casper. Anyway, that's the same person. That's my 60s comic book conspiracy theory. Anyway, in the 80s, when Nintendo became a thing, Nintendo started making their console, they saw this failure of Atari, and in classic Nintendo fashion, and also, mimicking Disney, I was going to say Mickey Mouse, but Disney, they were like, well, we're not going to let this fucking happen to us. We're going to install a CIC chip in with our games. And so what this was is if you were not licensed to produce Nintendo games, you did not get a CIC chip. You couldn't get the CIC chip. And the CIC chip was basically a check on the console to make sure that the game was licensed. And if the game wasn't licensed, the game wouldn't run. Even if it was programmed and had everything else right with it, if you didn't have that CIC chip, you couldn't run those games, which the entire purpose of it was to stop unlicensed software from running on their system. And a console is nothing more than a computer system that has one single task, which is to play flashy lights and repetitive music. But the Nintendo created an entire division, started an entire industry for this kind of digital rights management for their games, because they absolutely did not want people to produce games without paying them. And that's the surprise thing, is that gaming kind of really started the cybersecurity as an industry. Then you also had Sega Genesis do the same thing. Sega Genesis had the same concept in their stuff. And then as games became more and more complex, or there were more and more game companies, those that succeeded had some sort of licensing check on their games. ColecoVision was one that did not. They obviously did not succeed. Anyway, that's this episode could have easily have been called Pedancy and Gaming Consults.
So interesting.
What you got?
So, I did like it when you're like, anyone can make the game if they knew how. Well, anyone could make Nintendo games when they figured out how to do the voltage spike and get around the CIC chip. Like, any logical defense you build.
Which would have been considered what? Which would have been considered what to the console?
Considered hacking. But I never thought that hacking was not. Oh, no. Careful. Look at the transcript when you learn how to read, my friend. I never once said hacking didn't come in before. I said cybersecurity as a field didn't come into them as an entity. And that's the fun part about conjecture. You can have lots of fun, silly arguments. But yeah, anyone can build anything. Like you can logic any wall you want and somebody else can unlogic it. Like that is actually the old,
but with
the arms and armor argument. Well, I built better armor. Okay, well, I built a better arrow. And then somebody else built a longbow. I think I heard something about that recently. But anyway.
I built a higher wall.
Yeah. And I built gunpowder. Anyway. No, that's a very interesting argument. And it does ask for an extenuation of the trial. But I don't know. I still yeah, I don't know.
It's fair. It's fair to say, it is fair to say that cybersecurity as an industry really didn't become a mainstream. It really didn't become mainstream. Actually, it really didn't become mainstream until like 2010, honestly. Really, before then, there wasn't cybersecurity specialists. It was just a bunch of IT guys running around trying to do their best. And now, since like 2010, it's exploded into its own industry that is quickly being eaten up by people thinking AI is the solution.
So, thank you for making a much better argument for me than I did. But anyway, yeah, like so the ETM, the freaking this Nintendo doing security on their chips. Those are all great examples of one-off things of having to secure something. And to go back to my conjecture, I don't think that that's necessarily fundamentally different than locking the door or putting bollards up in front of your building or industrial espionage. Like, it's industrial espionage that you put into people's houses. It is technical controls and technical security and like getting people who are paranoid and who are nerds who understand the math and circuitry to build paranoid devices to counter stuff. And yeah, those are all things. Like the breadcrumbs of what became the industry of cybersecurity are littered over the last 70 years. Like you can go back pretty far. Like what is a bug? Literally a bug that got into the damn tape deck, into an old ass machine. Like a physical bug get on the actual operating system, which is incredible. But well, the idea of this whole industry and this whole pseudo-science or pseudo-religion of cybersecurity and AI is one of the biggest priests now. I totally are in the pantheon of gods of cybersecurity for sure. But yeah, it's saying, this article saying, it started in the 90s. With the internet, yeah. Going back to it, it became so ubiquitous. It became everywhere that people were like, oh yeah, we maybe shouldn't use PA $, word. Maybe that's not secure. Cybersecurity really didn't become a thing until the 2000s. And between the aughts and 10 is really when it started becoming a thing. And it's become, and now it's so big. And everyone's like, oh my God, cybersecurity. Talk about it in places. It's like, it's still just a handful of nerds who are, paranoid, building little chips and hoping no one unbuilds them.
It's true. Now, the last thing I'll say is that physical security is a part of cybersecurity. It 100% is. And we know this because you, my friend, are like me and have cybersecurity certifications. You have probably more than I do at this point. And with every cybersecurity certification that I've taken, at least, and I know you've taken the same ones, they cover one of the domains they cover is physical security, and they actually cover like when do you put bollards in, where do you put your data center, and they talk about physical security. So just because it's physical security does not mean it's not cybersecurity.
Well, physical security predates any of this stuff. Like it goes out to us in the caveman days. Like, no, this is my cave, bro. Stay out.
My argument being that just because it was physical security does not mean it wasn't cybersecurity.
honey.
Yeah.
Oh no. That's weak sauce.
A weak sauce. Get that dick out of your mouth.
Your Venn diagram is yeah, you are weak sauce. That Venn diagram is bullshit. That is like absolutely we both completely agree on this. Like, if somebody has physical access to your device, it's pwned. Just accept it and cut that communication off. Get that device off. Like, physical access to a thing, no. It's just, at that point, it's just a matter of time, and not as much time as you would like.
I'm in your walls, hacking your boxes.
I have 2 keyboards and 7 screens. Anyway,
Hugh Jackman, still the best hacker.
I learned so much from Swordfish.
It had a great soundtrack.
It did have a great soundtrack. Yeah, no, just because physical security existed before and will exist after doesn't mean that you can throw your rope around that and say, look, Rome was founded with physical security.
No, but it was destroyed with cannons.
Which
Absolutely was destroyed with cannons.
relates to what?
I don't know, man. It was it's physical breach.
With a bang, not a whimper.
Yeah, there you go. Well, not with a bang, not a whimper. Just like cybersecurity went in with a whimper and is now a banging industry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it does sign both of our checks, so that's nice.
It does. It does. Cybersecurity fucks.
Thank you, cybersecurity.
That's right. All right. Before this gets any more off the rails and before my laptop dies, I think we'll have to end this episode.
Interlude.
That's right. Well, I think that's all we got time for today, guys. I hope you all have a great day.